Good evening and Assalamu alaikum. This is Aruj Khaliq here from ALIF-Academic Leaders Innovation Forum. We are back with the third episode of Ask with AK, which is actually abbreviation for ability, skills, and knowledge. For those of you who had been following our platform for quite some time, would know that ALIF is a social and creative enterprise. We offer bespoke solution to schools, and as well as we provide consultancy to different institutes globally. We are driven with this motto to empower educationists as well as leaders of learning, as well as students worldwide. Today, with Ask with AK's third session, I'll just give you a little brief intro of what exactly these sessions are about. This is actually a part of our CSR where we bring in educationists from different realms of academia. Some of them are practitioners, some of them are policy developers, some of them are just teachers, right? And every time we come up with one issue which is prevalent and one topic which needs to be discussed. So in today's session, we are joined in by two wonderful ladies I've recently met, and I'm actually glad that I've come across these two brilliant and spectacular women in the field of STEM education. Today's topic is actually focused on what is informal science education and why it is important. So before really we proceed with the session, I would let you be introduced with Lalah, who has joined us from Science Fuse. She's also the founder and CEO of Science Fuse, which is a social enterprise working to promote STEM education in Pakistan. At the same time, we're also joined in by the most wonderful and the coolest space lady I know, Yumna Majid. She's also the founder of Exploration, which is again a social enterprise working to promote space sciences amongst Pakistan. I won't really go in detail of who these women are. I would rather hear it out from them. So Yumna, hello, how are you, Yumna?
Hi, Ruth. I'm doing good. How are you?
I'm doing good. Yumna, before really we move on to Lalah and we her with the questions, we would like to hear about you. What exactly you're doing with Exploration? What is the vision? How did the idea come up with to be this space lady? Because it's something that's not really heard of much.
Yes. So I am a medical student, first of all. I recently graduated as a medical lab technologist, but becoming an astronaut was my childhood passion. But as I grew up, I realized that space sciences don't have any scope in Pakistan. And I looked up to different international organizations to see how I can bring astronomy and space sciences in my country. I signed up as a volunteer and student ambassador with them and started different little educational campaigns in schools. Soon, the campaign just kept going on, and I realized that there is a lot of work. I can turn it into an organization. Then I met Miss Lalah, who told me the concept of social enterprise. I was doing science communication before joining Science Fuse, but I never heard of the term science communication, never learned it from anywhere. So Science Fuse was the platform where I learned these things, and I turned my organization into a sustainable one, which is now a social enterprise. And I am just inspiring kids to follow their dreams, not just space dreams, just follow your dream. Even if you want to become an artist or a scientist or an astronaut, just do it, because everything is possible if you just keep on trying and never give up. That's it.
Brilliant. It's an honor to have you on board. We'll move on to Lalah. Lalah, would you like to tell us about your vision of science and the whole ideology about behind Science Fuse and the wonderful work that you people are doing?
Thank you, Aruj. Thank you so much for having me. So Science Fuse का मकसद है primarily, if I say it in very simple words, is to make children fall in love with science. बच्चों की साइंस के साथ दोस्ती करवाना, क्योंकि हमारे मुल्क में साइंस किस तरह से पढ़ाई जाती है सैडली इन स्कूल्स, वो इस तरह से बच्चों को बर्डन करती है, या द वे चिल्ड्रन परसीव साइंस एंड साइंटिस्ट, it's not something that they grow up, falling in love with or wanting to be scientists. And that's a big problem for our country, because not a lot of children want to be scientists or don't grow up to be problem solvers or critical thinkers. So essentially what science teaches you is to question everything. It teaches you curiosity, it nurtures your curiosity. बच्चों के पास curiosity तो होती है, but science उसको nurture करती है, and it gives you the ability to think critically. So at Science Fuse, we have designed a curriculum where children get to think and work like scientists. And this curriculum is offered to children, at schools. हम schools के साथ partner up करते हैं, we collaborate with schools and also outside of schools. So at science festivals or at other private venues, we run these programs throughout the year so that children can do science in a way that it's hands-on, it's engaging, it's fun, it's exciting, and it tells them or makes them realize that it's much more than just the subject that you study at school. It's your ticket to understanding the universe. It's your and also science. What we believe at Science Fuse is that people need to understand that science, having an affinity for science and having good scientific literacy is important for everyone, no matter what your child grows up to be. As Yumna said, you could be an inspiring artist, you could, grow up to be anything, but you will require scientific literacy. You will grow up in a world that needs scientific literacy and critical thinking. Apart from that, what another important aspect of our work is that we train young people as science communicators. Like Yumna here is a part of our growing community of science communicators. We have about 55 people based in Lahore who are young scientists or people who are pursuing science at university. We train them, they become science communicators, and they become a part of our community. And these days we are focusing a lot on girls to understand how we can get more girls involved in science right from an early age, because our work is being supported by the Lalah Fund. And one of our primary objectives in those projects is to see how we can get more girls into science.
Brilliant, brilliant. You mentioned this term science communication. Would you guys like to talk about it? What exactly is science communication? Yumna, could you please address that?
Hello. Yes. So about science communication, this is what I learned at Science Fuse, and I truly believe in it. When a scientist write a research paper, वो इतने साल उस पे मेहनत करते हैं और इतना कुछ लिखते हैं, बट वो चीज जर्नल में ही रह जाती है. वो चीज हमारी पब्लिक तक क्यों नहीं आती, हमारे क्लासरूम्स तक क्यों नहीं आती? तो साइंस कम्युनिकेशन का मतलब इसी के अंदर है that the way we communicate science, the way we spread science, it is not a boring dry subject जिससे बच्चे डर कर भागें. We make it fascinating and we break the difficult concept in very easy steps in fun, loving and engaging ways that children वो उसको ना याद रख सके, हमेशा सीखें भी, और वो उनके माइंड में एक बात रह जाती है कि okay, we learned this thing with this activity and that's the science behind it. So that's how we do science communication.
Right. Lalah, my next question would be for you, that you mentioned that you people started off with this vision that you would promote informal science education. Would you please shed some light on what exactly is informal science education and how it is different from the science education which is being delivered in most of the national curricula?
Okay, so, there's something that I say to a lot of school owners, to a lot of teachers and a lot of organizations, that science is similar everywhere. That's the beauty of science. It's universal, right? So anything that you're teaching in Brazil or anything that you're teaching from a child in Indonesia, if you're teaching them about the water molecule, it's not going to change if I'm talking about that science of water molecules in Pakistan. So the first thing to understand is that science is universal and pretty much, obviously, everywhere you can apply it in the same way, and of course that aspect of science doesn't change. Now, how you communicate science and how you teach science and how you make it a part of someone's life, that is very different from how it's done traditionally in school and how it can be done outside of school. So we understand that in Pakistan, most of us have grown up in Pakistan. We have gone to school in Pakistan. And if you're privileged, you've probably gone to a private school, a mid-level private school or a high, tier private school. But imagine most of the schools in Pakistan are not, high-level private schools. They are low-income private schools and government schools. And so you can imagine how science is taught in those schools, and then also even in private schools, there are certain barriers, they have to complete their curriculum, children have to pass their exams, parents are worried about what formula has my child studied, have they learned all the equations, all those things, So these are restrictions that formal education has. Whether or not the formal education wants to change itself, that onus lies on the schools and the system that the stakeholders that are involved in giving children formal education. What science fuse and organizations like science fuse, like for example Exploration, do is that we create a space where children can engage with science informally. How do you engage with science informally? Well, if you're talking about science at dinner table with your parents, you're having a discussion, that's how you are engaging with science informally. If you're at a science festival and there's a stall where someone is blowing up a balloon or making some carbon dioxide and you're watching that experiment, or you're talking to a scientist informally, that's how you engage with science informally. For example, if you walk into a museum and you see some exhibits, and there are some exhibits and there are things about science that you can read and that you can look at or that you can touch, that's also an example of how you engage with science informally. But we don't have these things in Pakistan. I mean, have you ever walked into a spectacular science museum that blows your mind away? Or have you ever seen science-themed programs on television or on radio? We haven't really. So in our popular culture, science really doesn't exist. There's no presence of science. You do have presence of literature, music, dance to a certain extent. There are festivals that celebrate music. There are festivals that promote reading, but very, very few people understand that why children need to engage with science outside of textbooks, outside of the classroom, outside of the school environment. And then also एक और बात बड़ी अहम है कि लोगों को ये भी लगता है कि शायद फॉर्मल एजुकेशन और इनफॉर्मल साइंस एजुकेशन जो है एक दूसरे को रिप्लेस कर सकते हैं. So while formal education is important, engaging informally with science is equally important.
True. You talked about curiosity and how sometimes national schools, I would talk about, not the private ones, some of them are doing phenomenal job, but they again because of not having sufficient resources, they tend to not create children who are curious about science. So my question again, Lala, to you would be that what exactly excited you to pursue this vision? Because this is something that you don't see very commonly, not in Pakistan at least. I mean, like, I did my research. I do read a lot about different social enterprises working in Pakistan, especially in the realm of education. I didn't really come across many organizations who are actually promoting a vision of such a sort. So what exactly was the driving force for you as a scientist, as a science communicator to, just go out there and do it?
So there are a lot of organizations now in the last 5, 6, or 10 years who are doing incredible work. There's a small community of organizations mostly in the private sector who are working on introducing informal science education. There's Khwarizmi Science Society, there's Pakistan Science Club. There are a lot of organizations also working on robotics, education, for example. All these are examples of amazing organizations who are doing some wonderful work within this field. Why I started this personally, I've been a science communicator for the last 8 years. My journey started off when I studied science at university. I studied molecular biology and biotechnology. But I also grew up in Pakistan. I grew up in Karachi. Most of my schooling happened in Karachi. I went to university in Norway. And when I was at university, I discovered a social enterprise in Norway that were teaching science in a very different way. Their motto was that just as children do football in their free time, why can't they do science? And so I worked with them for 5 years, and that's where I discovered my passion for communicating science and for science communication. And then I later worked at the Science Museum in London for a while, and my experience from these two places basically ignited a passion inside me that I would like to take this to Pakistan and see if we can implement some of these programs in Pakistan and see how we can excite Pakistan's children, more towards science and build a better relationship when it comes to our children and science. उनकी science के साथ जो दोस्ती है, जो रिश्ता है, वो ज़्यादा मजबूत बनाया जाए. So that's how my interest came into this field.
Thank you. Yumna, you're one of those guest speakers who has been really popular thanks to the spacesuit. And kids have literally been asking me and sending me texts, where did you see this space lady? So my question to you would be that since we know that astronomy and space sciences are, that kind of sciences which are not really considered for girls, right? So
Yeah.
what exactly was the motivation for you to pursue it, and how did the journey start?
Okay,
Because my
so
sister is listening to this one.
so I will start from the thing that when you are a kid, you dream about things regardless of gender and regardless of the fact knowing that the society you live in, आपको अपना profession choose करना होता है according to your gender.
True.
So I always dreamed of becoming an astronaut and traveling out in the space, seeing what's in outside of a planet. So this curiosity was inside me, and I always say it was innate. कि किसी चीज ने spark नहीं की थी. But yes, Sparko, Pakistan Space Agency, ये मेरे घर के बहुत पास है, and I could see the laser lights coming out of Sparko from my lawn. So I always used to ask my parents, what is this place? यहाँ पे क्या होता है? Who can go inside? Because that's a very mysterious place. A common person cannot step inside our National Space Agency because of some security reason. So इस चीज ने मेरी curiosity को और spark किया, and there was something inside me which always used to say कि why not Pakistan? Why America can go, why Canada can go, but why cannot Pakistan? And why our public is not aware of this thing? I used to go to schools, and there was an incident where my own science teacher made fun of me because I wanted to become an astronaut. And she told the entire class that astronauts are nothing, there is no such thing as space, blah, blah, blah. And that was my anger. Yes, so that was my anger. I say that exploration is result of my anger towards all those incidents which happened to me in my childhood, who mocked me, who said that there is no such thing as space. I just wanted to prove somehow that there is a huge space outside this planet. Moon landings were not fake. And yes, there can be space in Pakistan. And there are a lot of Pakistanis who are working at different space agencies outside Pakistan and inside Pakistan as well. The only negative point is हमारे यहाँ awareness नहीं है. हमारी national space agencies पार्कों की public engagement इतनी ज़्यादा नहीं है कि हमारे लोगों को उसके बारे में ज़्यादा पता हो.
You mentioned to me about this program off camera when we were discussing that there was this program that you applied for, and you were the only girl. What was that actually about?
Yes. So last year I won Asia Pacific Space Leadership Award. I am national coordinator of an international organization, Space Generation Advisory Council. They had this scholarship, and they were selecting only 4 people all across Asia Pacific. And my plus point was I was the only female. I was the one of the very few females who applied, and I was the only female winner. 3 winners who were among me were males, and that's being a female and working in science. Yes, it makes you stand out. So that's the point, that we need to empower our young girls to take science and pursue your career professionally, and do apply. Even if you not fulfill the eligibility criteria 100%, please do apply, because this is what I did and I got selected.
Lovely. Lala, my next question would be to you, that since you people have ran quite a few science programs over the course of last 5 years, if I'm not wrong, what exactly did you figure out that is the relationship between informal science education and the learner engagement? I would want you to share some observations that you people had on the way. How did exactly, it varied from a curriculum and having objectives which are set in the stone?
So yeah, so we try and follow, जैसे मैंने कहा कि the science remains the same. We're not teaching any different kind of science, It's the same science that children have in their textbooks. the same concepts, the same principles. That doesn't change. What we do is that we do take inspiration from the national curriculum, from the things that children are studying at different grade levels, but we don't really necessarily restrict ourselves to those only those things. So, for example, I think there's very little about astronomy or space science even in a child's curriculum studying in Pakistan, even if it's at a private school. And then there are always new things coming up in science, or for example, the field of quantum mechanics. If I want to tell a 7-year-old कि quantum mechanics क्या होती है या quantum physics क्या होती है, I can do that, but I just need to know कि मुझे बताना कैसे है. How do I communicate this piece of information to a 7-year-old? But if you don't tell them about these things, how do you think they're going to be inspired? How do you think they're going to think beyond what the textbooks and what we think is the science that we should be teaching them? So that's what we do when we design our curriculum. We keep this in mind, that we want to make science exciting for children. We want to take very difficult concepts and deconstruct them and simplify them and make them engaging in a way that even a 7-year-old can understand, how an astronaut goes into space and what do they have to do if they have to survive in space. These are things that are complicated, but you can simplify them and make them engaging for a younger audience. You have to make it relatable for them. हम साइंस को रेलेवेंट बनाते हैं, हम उनको साइंस को बच्चों की जिंदगी के साथ जोड़ते हैं. जब तक आप साइंस को रेलेवेंट नहीं बनाएंगे, इंटरेस्टिंग नहीं बनाएंगे, engaging नहीं बनाएंगे, then a child is not going to be interested in science. So there's a term called science capital, which is something that has come out of recent research. When I was working at the Science Museum in London, I got to know about the concept of science capital. So it's like a bag. Imagine you have a bag, and under you have different experiences. So what you think about science, how you engage with science, who you know in science, all of these things go into your bag. जितनी ज़्यादा इस तरह की चीजें आपके बैग में होंगी, you have a higher science capital. So, for example, if you come from a family where you have maybe cousins or older people in your family who are scientists, and you've met them, you've spoken to them, you probably have a higher science capital. If you and your parents go to science festivals or go to science fuse programs or exploration के जो after school programs होते हैं, you have a higher science capital because you're engaging with science in a different way than just in school. For example, if you read books about science, you probably have a higher science capital. तो बच्चों का साइंस कैपिटल बिल्ड करने के लिए हमने देखा है पिछले 3.5 साल में, over the course of last 3.5-4 years in Pakistan, there are lots of different things that you have to do to enhance their science capital. One of those things is probably engaging them with in after school programs, या स्कूल में भी ये programs run किए जा सकते हैं, जहाँ पे the curriculum that we follow and the way we teach science through hands-on activities, by making it fun, by making it relevant. We also recently have started a lot of distance learning and digital programs where we let children engage with scientists. A lot of our community members are scientists themselves. Like Yumna is studying, medical at university, medical sciences. So we have people who are studying physics, people who are cancer scientists, people who are studying biology, doing a lot of cool stuff in science. And then when they meet children, they tell them what they do in their labs, how they're doing such fantastic research in Pakistan, and that also inspires children and changes their perception of science. So, for example, if I ask you to close your eyes, अगर मैं आपसे बोलूँ अरूज आप जरा आंखें बंद करें and think of a scientist, what is the first picture that pops up in your head?
Marie Curie.
That's very good. That's very good that Marie Curie pops up in your head. But in a lot of people's heads, it's mostly the figure of Einstein or या कोई और some old man, white man with hair, flying or flying
on the blackboard and just carrying out experiments.
And also, so children also imagine grown-ups as scientists, or they imagine. Most people imagine men as scientists, as Yumna was talking about. So not a lot of people will think like you, maybe imagining Marie Curie. Not a lot of children imagine themselves. They don't think that they themselves are scientists. So at our programs, we make children realize that they themselves are scientists. What do scientists do? They just figure out answers to questions, right? And when we let children do that, when we give them that autonomy, here's everything. Let's find out answers to questions together. Let's do some experiments to understand, a concepts like forces or concepts like density. Then they are scientists just like you. And एक और चीज मैं कहूँगी, sorry I'm taking so much time. Just one
It's
last
okay.
thing. तो साइंसदान क्या करते हैं, scientists, some of the big scientists in this world, and scientists who have lived and are not alive anymore but have made really big discoveries. Whenever they make a big discovery, that's the eureka moment, right? Oh my God, we've discovered something new. Like for example, when maybe Marie Curie discovered radioactivity. Now, that moment of discovery is just amazing, right? It's life changing for them. Now, there are a lot of things that we already know about. For example, things that science has discovered, and we already know about those things. But children don't know about those things. Can we teach them in a way that we can create those moments of discovery for them? So, for example, if I ask you, Aruj, or if I ask you, Yumna, you probably know if you take some baking soda and some vinegar, mix them together, you will see, a lot of gas bubbles, and a very simple science experiment, right? You know that. As a grown-up, you know that. As a teacher, as a parent, you probably have done this before or you've seen it somewhere. The child doesn't know it. Imagine when they do it for the first time and they make that discovery. So things that we already have the answers to, if we can change them into moments of discovery for children, imagine that moment is going to stick with them forever. They're going to remember that piece of information or whatever they learned during that experiment for a very long time, rather than just reading about it in a textbook. And also, we don't just teach children scientific information or facts, we also teach them how to work and think like a scientist. These are science inquiry skills.
You talked about that we need to teach children how to think, not exactly what to think, right? Yumna, my question would be for you this time that what steps do you think we as educationists, as parents, as schools should take, especially in post-COVID world, to promote STEM education? Because we do know that the whole scenario is going to change. There's a lot of, there are a lot of protocols which are to be followed. So what exactly is your take on that?
I think the best thing about being a science communicator is we can always develop new activities, and we can always find the material which is very easy to get hands on. And post-COVID situation, mein what we can do is science at home. Iska best part ye hai ki the families are engaged with kids. So currently the science club that exploration and science views are doing, it's so much fun when we see pictures from parents जहाँ पर parents और उनके बच्चे एक साथ science में engaged are. That's how parents are learning as well, and I hope they will keep on moving this tradition. I wish ये हमारे यहाँ एक trend बन जाए, एक tradition बन जाए that parents are doing science at home with their kids, and that's how I guess they will bond more or maybe learn more somehow. But yes, they should do science at home, outside the books, outside the classroom, ताकि साइंस इतनी स्केरी ना लगे जो हमें लगती है, इतनी ड्राई ना लगे.
Right. Lalah, you people are doing this series of podcasts. I saw that on your website. What exactly is that for, and who is the target audience you people are trying to focus on with those series? Because I found them pretty interesting. They're both in Urdu and English, so I really like the vision.
Thank you so much, Aruj. So अभी जैसे आप जिक्र कर रही थी, you just asked Yumna that in this world now that the world has changed, or has it has been very different. The last 4, 5 months, 6 months have been very difficult. So there was a silver lining to it that we thought, all right, we can't do in-person programs. What else can we do? And the world of science communication is huge. You can communicate science in so many different ways. I wish there was a TV program on. If anyone is listening to this, please make a TV program. I hope the right kind of people are listening who have the kind of influence and resources to make this happen. We would love to do this. Imagine a TV program where you see a scientist someone who isn't very out of reach, who's accessible, who's relatable, and is doing science experiments that you can replicate at home. So that's something that we've been doing, or we're running digital, and distance learning classes where children do science experiments with us online. That's what Yumna talked about. But there's something else we thought about. We thought science को किस तरह से कहानी की शक्ल में ढाला जाए. How can we communicate science through stories? Can we make stories that talk about science? And so we came up with this idea of creating 2 series. The first one is called Incredible Questions of Science. And in this series, what we do is we take everything, planets and black holes and honeybees and viruses, and we write stories on them. So for example, there's a story called What Would Happen If All the Honeybees Disappeared? And then there's a story about Are Viruses Alive? Then there's a story, Are there superheroes around us? And this one is about insects around us that have superpowers. And then we write these stories in a way that there's a lot of scientific information packed inside the stories. Plus, we also add history of science in these stories. Plus, we also add very important life lessons, like teaching children values like grit, patience, determination. And the second series is even more exciting. It's about female scientists. So female scientists are not mentioned anywhere in any curriculum in Pakistan. किसी भी स्कूल में आप चले जाएं, they're not present in,
but never really discussed in detail.
Yeah, I mean, I never grew up, honestly speaking. I went to school in Pakistan. I did not know कि Jane Goodall कौन है. I didn't Catherine Johnson. These are some of really brilliant scientists, from around the world, and very little information, is given to children about these women scientists. Not just in Pakistan, but I think this is the case in everywhere in the world. Women scientists haven't been highlighted in that way. So what we do is we take these women scientists from diverse backgrounds. They're from different parts of parts of the world. Some of them are alive, some of them are not alive now, but they have done some incredible work in science, and we write stories about them. And we also try and teach young girls and boys the lessons that they can derive from their lives. How they overcame some of the biggest barriers because they were women or because of other difficulties. And then that's also an important life lesson for children.
Lovely. And the best part of that series is that it's for free, right? So anybody around the globe can access it.
You can access it. It's the first time that anyone in Pakistan is making science stories, keeping Pakistani children in mind. So these stories are culturally relevant. There are no set of stories that are relevant to Pakistan's children. So you can listen to them in Urdu and English, and we want to translate them later on in regional languages also. And they're available free of cost. You can listen to them on sciencefuse.com/podcast. Yeah.
Brilliant. Another question to you would be, Yumna, this goes for you. How do you see that STEM education is going to evolve in Pakistan, especially in communities which are somewhat, you can say, underprivileged communities? What do you think is the future? Where would we be in, say, 10 years' time? And by the way, question box is open. If somebody wants to ask a question, we are taking questions now.
So about science communication and STEM education in Pakistan, I am very hopeful, I would say, because when I started working, I was 18 years old and I faced a lot of rejection from different schools. But now I am at the point where everyone wants science communication and space and astronomy related sessions at their school. So in the time span of 4 years, I have seen a lot of improvement. And I think that STEM education is going to be the next trend in Pakistan. In 2019, I would say, when I started, there were not enough astronomy-related organizations in Pakistan. But in 2019, there are many different new ventures related to astronomy have been started. And same goes for STEM education in general. So I'm very hopeful. I believe that अब इतनी awareness create हो रही है लोगों में और अपनी capacity में people are like doing some work, and I hope that all these resources go to the underprivileged kids as well, because that's where we need it most important. So I am very hopeful that 10 साल में बहुत अच्छा काम हो जाएगा. We need a lot of people like Lalah who empower others and who work with different schools at the same time. So hum kuch na kuch kar lenge. 10 years, enough time.
Lovely. Lala, because this interview is being featured through Staff from Pakistan as well, and that is a big social media group with a lot of teachers from different schools and organization up as a part of that community. So what suggestion would you give to the teaching community which is actually listening to you right now, that how can they adapt this model and take it back to their classrooms without making it too expensive, because not every school can afford an expensive lab. What suggestions would you want to give to those teachers who are interested and who are willing and who are inspired, but they need somebody to guide them? What exactly would be your advice on that?
I think I have a new respect for teachers in during the pandemic. As we've seen, I think we have appreciated people who are working in the medical sector, in the health sector. But at the same time, I think teachers have also done a beautiful and great job. It's not easy. बच्चों की education, children's education has been at risk during the pandemic. This is one of the things that has been most severely affected. And teachers have, geared up, and we have a network of schools that we are training online digitally, and they're from Balochistan, they're from Karachi, they're from Lahore. The teachers and their families are also facing a lot of problems and burdens. And of course, children are also going through a lot of difficult times, but teachers are the heroes, and they're they're working very hard to curate some beautiful experiences for children online. So I think the first thing I would say to any teacher is, don't let your own curiosity die. When we become grown-ups and adults, we lose our curiosity. So this is something that we need to, keep asking ourselves. Is my curiosity dead? Am I interested in finding out more? And am I a learner myself? It's very important to stay a learner all your life and keep reminding yourself of it and keep practicing different things so that you stay a learner. If you're a learner, then you will, work in a way with your children that they will also be inspired to self-learn, to ask questions. So if you're a good learner, then there are a lot of resources online and in so many places that you can learn from. And hoga kya, if you're a learner, you might not get it right the first time. For example, jaise Aruj ne kaha, like you mentioned, Aruj, that if there are teachers out there who want to do science experiments in their schools, but at a very low cost, there are millions of examples. Honestly, there are thousands of examples online that you can test at home, and then you can go in your classroom and do it. And what happens if you fail? If you fail, then you tell your students that I have also failed like you because I'm just a learner. Let's try again. Let's maybe try and work it out together. So that's the first tip. And the second thing would be that it's not that difficult to communicate science. Honestly, we have people in our community jinki science ki background bhi nahi hai, but they're just interested in science, and they go out there inside classrooms and get children excited about science. So पहले तो वर्क ऑन योरसेल्फ, आपकी अपनी नॉलेज ऑफ साइंस, आपकी अपनी जो लर्निंग की कैपेसिटी है वो बड़ी होनी चाहिए. एंड देन व्हेन यू थिंक यू रेडी, गो इनटू द क्लासरूम, गो वेल प्रिपेयर्ड. एंड चिल्ड्रन आर रियली अमेजिंग, दे आर वेरी फास्ट लर्नर्स. अगर आपके में थोड़ी सी कमी रह जाए ना, तो वो आपको खुद आपके साथ मिलके दे विल फिगर आउट दोस एक्सपेरिमेंट्स. ऑनेस्टली आई थिंक चिल्ड्रन आर मच smarter. When I step into a classroom, I'm very scared because the kids are smarter than me.
True.
And I take an experiment and I feel like, and I am more scared of failing. I am more scared. They are not that scared of failing. उनसे एक बार गड़बड़ हो जाएगी, वो दोबारा करेंगे, तीसरी दफा करेंगे, चौथी दफा करेंगे. हम ज्यादा डरते हैं, हम बड़े हो गए ना, हमें होता है कि हाय मेरा एक्सपेरिमेंट फेल हो जाए. हाँ. और हमें लगता है कि अरे एक्सपेरिमेंट फेल हो जाएगा, सबके सामने बेइज्जती हो जाएगी. लेकिन एक्सपेरिमेंट का तो मतलब ही यही है कि वो या तो सक्सेसफुल होगा या फेल होगा, एंड देन यू ट्राई अगेन. उसका जरूरी नहीं है कि वही रिजल्ट निकले जो आपने एक्सपेक्ट किया, फिर वो एक्सपेरिमेंट तो ना हुआ. So yeah, just keep your mind and your eyes and ears open, and be always open to learning new things, and that will take you a long way.
Lovely, lovely. That's all actually from my end. If there is anything else you both would want to contribute, this is your home ground. Feel free to share. If there's anything else you would want to share with our listeners and people out there, girls, boys who are listening to you, children, teachers, so it's your call.
So I just want to add this thing for teachers. I would add to what Lalah said, that after like खुद सीखने के बाद just listen to your students as well. Don't shush them कि ठीक है, if they are asking some questions, just let them ask. There is no question as a stupid question. Question is a question rather than it's a scientific question or a stupid question. What's the purpose behind the question if it's not stupid or अगर उसका answer जैसा भी हो? So just teachers need to calm down a bit on kids maybe. I know maybe it's a very difficult job to handle 40 students or 60 students at the same time. But please don't mute them. Because if you just shh them, which means कि आप उनकी curiosity को, आप उनके interest को उसी वक्त आप silent कर रहे हो. Because this is something happened on me. तो मैंने तो अपने पे काम कर लिया and here I am now. But I don't want कि ऐसा किसी और बच्चे के साथ हो. That's just a little message for teachers.
True, true. Thank you, Lalah, and thank you, Yumna, for joining us all here. For those of you who are listening to us, we are excited to announce that we would be having a collaboration with both Science Fuse as well as Exploration. There's going to be a program which is going to be launched through ALIF with the title of How to Think Like a Scientist, if I'm not wrong. And that's going to be live, inshallah, on 10th of September. The enrollments would be open, and kids who are between the ages of 7 to 13 years of age can easily enroll with that. As far as the session is concerned, thank you, Yumna. Thank you, Lalah, for taking your time out of your busy routine. I know you guys are pressed hard with so many projects, but it was lovely talking to you. We would be back with another episode within, inshallah, 20 to 30 days. Till then, take very good care of yourself. A drop mic from my end. Bye-bye.
Thank you. बहुत शुक्रिया. अल्लाह हाफिज़. अल्लाह हाफिज़. नहीं, मेरा कंप्यूटर मरने वाला है. बैटरी ऑफ होने लगी है.